I guess it kind of works out. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go because Tony Mitchell is Monopoly gone.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go, and thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Jimmy, Tony Mitchell, it had been rumored for a while, and in fact, you were behind the scenes surprised he had not already been in the portal. Well, now he is in the portal, and again, we hardly knew you, and boy, somebody in the comments yesterday said I'm too doomsday when it comes to these transfers. I'm really not doomsday. I mean, Peyton Woodyard, go do your thing. I do think the big picture, it's a problem for all of college athletics. But Peyton Woodyard, go do you, man. Same thing with Tony Mitchell. Go do you. And maybe he was ushered out to some degree. Maybe I'll let you explain that. But it does it not bother anybody else? I mean, again, number one, it does hurt Bama's depth a little bit, even though I think we're going to be fine. Does it not bother anybody else that Alabama did kind of go to bat for this kid after his trouble? And all it took was 1 year, and he's out of here. And I don't know. I mean, there's something sort of disloyal about that, right? I mean, I'm not hating on the kid. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, I agree. Although I wonder if his loyalty might have lied with Saban, Saban's the one that went to bat for him, in terms of defending him and keeping him through the legal trouble. It was Saban and not DeBoer. But, here's one thought I have, particularly about Peyton Woodyard and Tony Mitchell is I'm sure what I'm about to say isn't going to stop anything from happening. But there's too much angst when we recruit these kids. And will we sign him or will we want? How much angst did we expend? How much emotion did we expend in the recruitment of? And then ends up Peyton Woodyard and Tony Mitchell never play a down for Alabama, and they're out the door. So maybe we shouldn't fall all over ourselves, when it comes to signing day, because what does that really mean anymore? In terms of whether a player is going to eventually play for you. It seems like now the only time to ever really know who's on your team is the summer right before the team starts playing games. And that's who's on your team, because 1 year from then, who the heck knows who's going to be on your team? No different than the basketball. What have I been saying about basketball? 13 in, 13 out. Football's not 85 in, 85 out. Yet, but isn't it?
Unless you're Colorado.
I mean, the amount of yeah, exactly. And this is interesting. I'm about to do something before I even do it, and I'm already guessing. When people are like, "Well, Alabama's too deep on the defensive backfield," looks really scary now because you have starters that haven't played a ton, and then the backups haven't played at all, and that's really scary. And it is, and it's not a great situation. It's not. But I'm about to look at Georgia's too deep, and I haven't looked at it yet. I can name one guy off the top of my head, Starks, who I know is a freaking fantastic player. He'll be a first-team All-American at Malachi Starks. But other than that, I don't really know, because I know Georgia lost a lot of guys too. But my point is, Georgia's the state of the art, right? I mean, that's the best program in college football. I'll be the first to admit. Right now, as we speak, Kirby Smart and Georgia Bulldogs, they're the best program in college football. They're very likely to start preseason number one. Ohio State could, because of all the players they've signed out of the portal in the past year. But I think we all know, weirdly, I'm not going to say Ohio State's the best program, Luke, because Ohio State might be number one, but we all know if they don't win the championship, Ryan Day's job's in danger. They sort of feel a little bit like a great team and also a house of cards at the same time. So Georgia is the best program in college football. So I'm going to look at too deep today and write up a little thing on BOL about Georgia's too deep, saying, hey, this is the best program in college football, and let's see if they've solved the too deep. Let's see if they have starters who are all returning and backups who are all experienced. I'm betting we don't find that, but it'll be interesting to look at. Now that's aside. Now back to Tony Mitchell. It is a loss. Me and Luke don't mean to gloss over and say that, oh, this is no big deal. It is a big deal. Tony Mitchell was a 5-star type prospect. He's an in-state guy from Thompson. He clearly had a ton of ability, and he was someone that was worthy of his, in my opinion, his high school rankings and the attention during the recruiting process. That's all true. Now, at the same time, the doom and gloomers are probably going way too far here, because this is a kid who wasn't on the 3 deep. As a matter of fact, there are true freshmen on the 2 deep. Tony Mitchell's not a true freshman. So he was passed up in the grand scheme of things. I know you can say Red Morgan and Tony Mitchell don't play the same position. Well, they're in the same room. They're both safeties that play football at Alabama. And Red Morgan was in the 2 deep. Peyton Woodyard was a safety ahead of Tony Mitchell as a true freshman when he left. Peyton Woodyard was in the 2 deep at the time he left, though he wouldn't have been, because I think Cam Howard is going to actually be a second-team safety for Alabama now, and he would have pushed Peyton Woodyard down the ladder. That said, I think we brought in Cam Howard because Peyton Woodyard and Tony Mitchell were leaving. So anyway, end result, not good that Mitchell and Woodyard left. End of the world? No, not at all. It didn't really affect Alabama's 2 deep for 2024 at all. We just have to restock the cupboard in 2025 recruiting.
And there are still dudes getting in the portal as of yesterday. So you don't know. I mean, one thing about the deadline to know, Luke, that's important because not everybody knows this. You don't have to be in the portal closed last night at midnight, but you don't actually have to be in the portal before midnight last night. You just have to have informed your university that you intend to enter the portal before midnight last night. So there could still be an Alabama guy or two out there. That's why at BOL, we're not stating emphatically, okay, there were 4 losses total, let's move on, because we don't know for sure. No need to put a depth chart out.
That's right. We don't know for sure, but most likely that's it for Alabama in terms of the losses. We're not aware of anyone else, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
You know what it reminds me of now? Excuse me, my voice is still coming back, by the way. It's like when I used to play basketball over at the JCC or over at Dawson Church or whatever, and they'd have a draft one night, and the next week you'd start playing games. That's what college football is now. I mean, like, it's not like, oh, I can't wait to see player X develop in a year and a half. He's going to be hell on wheels. No, I mean, you might see him develop. It'd be another team or two. You just start over every time right before the season starts. And there's part of me that really, really hates that. So I just can't get over that. But what I can get over, I can get over some FanDuel, because I love me some FanDuel, and let's talk about it. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home the big win of your own. Look, right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 on spreads, bets, money line, player prop, whatever you want. You can do it all at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on, and make every single playoff shot count when you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel is America's number one sportsbook. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the 2025 draft. Some people, I know some people don't enjoy that. I'm a huge draft fan. I did a sports show last night, Sports Blitz Live, and my co-host, he's like, I didn't watch 5 seconds of the draft. And I said, well, you're an Auburn fan. Why would you? And he said, but I've never watched 5 seconds of the draft. He said, it just didn't do anything for me. And see, I'm the opposite. Like, the draft to me it's the Bachelor for college football fans. I mean, football fans in general. It's just, you go out there and like, will you accept this rose? And I just love it. I think it's fantastic. And so let's talk a little bit about the 2025.
College football. It's college football recruiting. And aren't almost everyone listening to the show, y'all are all big fans of recruiting, right? I think that's why you're listening to the show. A lot of you. It's college football recruiting all condensed into 48 hours, basically.
Yeah.
It's like 48 hours, the whole recruiting process, boom, results revealed to you over a 48-hour period. So that's compelling to me. And I just like the NFL so much, Luke, that I guess it's the beauty of not having a favorite NFL team for me, just loving the NFL, because I'm fascinated by what all 32 teams are doing. I mean, I know what's going on to some extent at all 32 teams. And I'm this guy that watches a ton of Path to the Draft comes on NFL Network. I watch it every day, pretty much. I mean, I watch the heck out of all these draft shows. So by the time you get to the draft and the Vikings step up there, I already know. I'm like, okay, well, the Vikings need to trade up and get J.J. McCarthy, and they probably need to draft an edge guy. Because I've watched, and the Buccaneers, I know what they need. The Colts, they're going to take a corner or best player available. So I love it. It's fun for me.
Yeah. So 2025, Alabama's got this long streak of first rounders.
Yeah.
It's going to be tight next year.
It's in danger.
I'll say it again.
It's in danger.
Yeah. Now,
I agree. It's in danger. I was agreeing with you.
There are two guys that I've seen mocked in the first round for Alabama. That's Tyler Booker and Jalen Milroe. Mm-hmm. Those the only two I could really see. I mean, I suppose if Deontay Lawson blew up, but I don't know that he's a first round guy. I mean, I'm not saying he can't play pro. Sure he can. I just don't know if he's a first round guy. But I think Tyler Booker and Jalen Milroe will both have their shots. And Jalen Milroe specifically, because he is a Greek god. I mean, he is just an Adonis. And when you look at him, you go, okay, I don't know what I'm going to let him play, but he's going to play something. And so I certainly think there will be a shot. That is not my saying that I think Jalen Milroe is a first-round quarterback. I think he could be by definition because he gets drafted in the first round. I don't think he is by the same token that Dan Marino was something like the 28th pick in the draft. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't think Bo Nix is a first-round quarterback. He went in the first round because there was a need for it. As you have always said, it only takes one team to love you to take you in that round. So somebody will fall in love with Jalen Milroe. As long as he's not, beaten out this year or something crazy happens, I think Jalen Milroe could go in the first round. Is he worthy of a first round the way we as fans think of first round? Yet to be seen. But I think he could go in the first round based on potential alone. And then there's Tyler Booker, who is this year's Terrion Arnold. His interviews are incredible. His Bamarism knows no bounds. And he's team first guy. He is the opposite of what we've seen with some of these transfer portal dudes. He wants to be at Bama. He wants to do good things at Bama, and he's a gump, and more power to him. And I think that will help out Tyler Booker when it comes to being evaluated for where he needs to go in the draft.
Yeah, Booker and Milroe to me are the two they're two perfect examples of what the Alabama 2025 draft looked like today. One is Tyler Booker to me is the guy that's going to keep the streak alive. I think he will be a first-round pick and a really good NFL player. I've always said, to me, he's a longer Chance Warmack, but longer. And Chance Warmack went very high in the first round. I think Booker will be a first-round pick. What gives me pause is his position. Offensive guards are not treated well in the draft, and sometimes you can be the best guard in the draft and still not go in the first round because guards just aren't valued as high picks in the draft. So that makes me nervous. Milroe, ultimate wild card. I think anyone that wants to bet serious money against him being a first-round pick is being very reckless with their money. I also think anyone that bets for him as being a first-round pick is being equally reckless with their money. I think Milroe still, and it's because he's not developed. I think the Milroe we've seen so far, in my opinion, is not a quality NFL quarterback. The one we've seen so far. The Milroe he can become is absolutely an NFL quarterback. But I'm still waiting to see that, Jalen Milroe. And I think we may see it this fall because he's just a real inexperienced guy. I'm rewatching the Texas game right now for some work on BOL, and that game really stands out the most to me in that respect because I'm watching Quinn Ewers, who wasn't quite NFL ready, but more NFL ready than Milroe. And I think, frankly, Alabama beat Texas in Austin 2 years ago. Why? Because Bryce Young was ready to do that. And the Texas quarterbacks that played in that game, Ewers and then Hudson Card, were not. And then last year, why did Texas win? They had a quarterback advantage in the game. Quinn Ewers was ready to win that game, play in that game, win that game, and play well. Jalen Milroe was not. He was making his third college start against one of the elite defenses in college football on a field full of NFL players. So this year is Milroe's turn. Now let's see, is he NFL ready? Because if he is, he's a first-round pick. Now, I think a couple of Alabama players could blow up into first-round picks. Jahad Campbell is a guy I would throw out there that I think could blow up and become a first-round pick. And you can't even rule out a guy like Damani Jackson, who has first-round measurables. He just hasn't played like a first-round pick yet.
Yeah, you said what I wanted to say much more eloquently. Jalen Milroe has first-round potential. He just hadn't played like a first-round pick yet. But a lot of times that's all you need is the potential. That's what they draft on. You know,
that's 100% true, that they draft on traits, and Milroe has NFL traits. That's why I'm saying the people that are real adamant about Jalen Milroe one way or the other, I don't even understand their takes. The people that are adamant that he's this or he's that, I think it's just to be determined. I mean,
yeah,
and that's with almost all college players, but especially with Jalen.
God, I'll tell you what. If there's one dude you could have back this year, I guess you would always want to tackle, and that may be a thing. Alabama may need to reach out to another tackle. We're sort of short on tackles right now. But if you could have one guy on this team, from last year that, of course, a lot of people take Dallas Turner, understand, or Terry on or something like that. But I might want Jermaine Burton back. I might want one more receiver that Milroe had a good rapport with, that always seemed to bail him out. I mean, Milroe made a bunch of big catches at times when they were very important. And so it would be awesome if he were back, but to be that target. Now, Ryan Williams may end up being that guy, and we all know this is a Ryan Williams podcast. But so
call him the summer of Ryan Williams, by the way.
Yeah.
We can adopt that here if you want. I mean, I'm calling it that.
I'm
summer of Ryan Williams.
Okay. By the way, just apropos of nothing, I was reached out to by the Falcons Play Action Offense Twitter page. And you say, what is that? It is the Brazilian Atlanta Falcons Twitter fan page, and they do podcasts. And they reached out to me, and that if you go to @FalconsPlayBR, and then you have to translate their stuff into English using my Al Gore computer. It's basically Brazilian profile dedicated to the Atlanta Falcons with weekly news and podcasts about the Dirty Birds. So they wanted to have me on to talk about Jace McClellan.
About Jace?
Like, sure. I'm doing that right after this. That's interesting.
Didn't they speak English?
God, I hope so. If not, this is going to be one hell of a podcast.
You probably know this. So, but I feel like I should tell you, just in the small chance that you don't. But just in case it comes up, in Brazil, they speak Portuguese and not Spanish.
I'm very aware of that. And the reason I know that is because a friend of mine was talking about how somebody got them a mail order bride from here in LA City. Mail order brides are much more prevalent than you think. I've known a couple of people.
I'm a divorce lawyer. I'm aware.
And well, he got one. A friend of a friend got one, and my friend was telling me about it, or telling another friend about it, and said, it's weird though. They have such a language barrier. She only speaks Pekingese, and we were like, "What does she bark? I mean, what is Pekingese?" So, but anyway, that's how I always remember. It's one of those things too. You know how when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor, was it over? I've said that so much as a joke, I start to believe it.
Believe that the Germans actually bombed Pearl. Yeah.
Now when I have to stop and think, is it Pekingese or Portuguese? Luke, don't be an idiot. It's Portuguese. That goes through my head every time somebody brings up Brazil in their language.
Isn't a mail order bride the ultimate human trafficking? I mean, that's like for real. That's literally.
I'll tell you what else.
When you're putting them in the mail
But I'll tell you something else. You just said something. You said a mail order bride. And when you said that immediately, I thought MALE. I was like, that's a good point. Nobody ever talks about dudes being brought over.
Mail order husbands. Oh,
it's always the women.
Well, you can't give us away.
No, you can't. Maybe like, do not return the sending. This is you, bro. You bought it. You have it.
It's like that Twitter joke. Why
All right.
Why are men? It's like that Twitter joke. Why are men always picking up women in bars? You should go to Target because there's 20-to-1 females to males, and they're already looking for stuff they don't need.
Oh, that's great. I've never heard that before. I like that. But one thing I have heard of before, and that's Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go is just awesome. Look, all right, game off. We got to pause here and talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You've already talked about that. But there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. You can unlock unique stickers that you can trade with a friend to complete big albums for big prizes or cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, all that stuff. Look, there's always a new timed event to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win for rent frenzies. Monopoly Go, I told you my daughter had spent night company the other night. My daughter and she were playing it. It's just a super fun game. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it for free on Google Play or on the App Store. Monopoly Go, game on. All right, so Jarin Stevenson from the basketball team, in I guess a slightly mild surprise, has decided to test the NBA draft waters. I don't blame him. A friend of mine who's pretty close to the program told me weeks ago, the coaches have his little worried about Jarin Stevenson. I was like, really? And they said, he wants to test the waters, and you never know. I mean, Charles Bediako, you never know. Now, I feel very confident he'll be back. I think everybody should feel confident he'll be back. But again, you never know. And it's just one of those things. And here's the good news. If he does go, we're still stacked. I want Jarin Stevenson back, but we're stacked.
Yeah. Here's what makes me nervous. I'll invoke this name, and this is why we should be nervous. Josh Primo. I mean, the NBA took Josh Primo. Primo didn't play in his year at Alabama. Didn't play like a first-round pick. Not like Brandon Miller, who knocked the NBA door down and was, the second pick. Or, it's Josh Primo. They looked at Primo and saw what he could become. And that's why they took him in the first round. Jarin Stevenson fits that profile. It's so easy to see when you can consider his age, just like Primo, what he can become. So I'm nervous in that sense. But if I had to bet, and thankfully I don't bet on this. But if I had to bet, I would say Jarin Stevenson's going to be back. But overall, there's good news all about the roster. Hearing positives, not yet, not even close to yet a projection, but hearing some positives as it relates to Cliff Omoyuri.
And if that happens, I mean, again, I know I've said this on a few podcasts in a row, but I am both thrilled to death and nervous because the expectations are going to be out of bounds.
It will be if we sign Cliff Omoyuri and bring Mark Sears back, which is all possible.
Yeah.
There will be a lot of fans with not Final Four that we've done there, been there. No, it'll be national championship or bust for some fans. Be like, I will be satisfied with nothing but a national championship. And that's fun. For one thing, it's fun. I would much rather have that situation than, let's see if we make the tournament again. I'd much rather have that. But I do get frustrated with the insanity that brings about, which means that when you don't do that, now it's time to fire people. We're so mad that it didn't happen. I do lash out at that because I think that's just absurd. People not understanding what the randomness of sports, because there is a randomness to it. That's why they play the games. So we don't already know who's going to win.
I already have friends that lose their minds when we go out in the Sweet 16. And I'm like, guys, y'all got, I mean, or when we lose a regular season game, at Ole Miss or at Arkansas or whatever, at Auburn. And I'm like, it's not a big deal. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I want to win it. Sure, we're playing it, so let's win it. But that's not the deal. And what I do worry about is this. Winning a national champ, like let's say we win a national championship, and I want to have the banner. I want to be there. I want the confetti to rain over me. I want all that stuff. But if we do that, from that point forward, the expectation is national championship. Now, you say there's nothing wrong with that. I say, you know what? Part of me enjoys basketball season more because I don't have these unreasonable expectations that football has thrust upon me. And so I get it. I mean, the goal is to win a national championship. Please don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, I hope it doesn't take any of the fun off of it. If you were a Duke fan, when you lose to Mercer in the first round, it is catastrophic, just god awful. What really you should be doing is going, okay. I mean, we were probably due for a train wreck. We won a ton of national championships, been to a ton of Final Fours, and instead it just makes it sound like what's wrong with the program? Fire everybody. It's basketball. Upsets happen.
Well, I think some people hold it's okay to have a standard and like, okay, this is the standard and this is the goal, but the standard and goals, that's fine. But some people set a standard that you must reach that no one is reaching. No one is doing what you think your program should be doing. No one else is doing it either. Yeah. And that's super frustrating. And it's fine to have high goals. The question is, how do you react and what do you do if you don't reach them? And sometimes it deserves hey, we need to blow it up and start all over again. But most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time you just keep recruiting and keep trying to get better.
I lived through the end of David Hobbs. I lived through Anthony Grant. I lived through, some bad basketball stuff. I know when it needs to be blown up. I just don't want us to, after this Final Four, like let's say we get knocked out in the round of 32 next year, which happens to great teams. It happened this year to great teams. Then don't give me we need to blow up everything. Thanks.
No. And trust me, it'll blow up on its own because 13 out, 13 in, that's going to apply next year.
It's blowing up regardless. I just don't need you blowing it up. That's all. You keep your dynamite at your house.
Which people need to realize that every fan's voice, it does matter. Players have to want to play here. So use your voice to make it a program that players want to play for. Don't make it a place where players are like, good Lord, they're so vicious to the players there. That's no thanks. And does that happen? Yeah, it does.
All right, that's going to do it for today's pod. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.